All right, let's get started. Everyone get lecture slides. Everyone's here. All right. Quick word on the quiz. Some of you did okay. Some of you didn't do as well as I'm sure you hoped you would do. I want to say two things about that. One, don't worry about it. There's ways I can massage the grade a little bit. In fact, I may institute a policy if you get one freebie per quarter. So you get to retake any exam of your choosing, any quiz of your choosing. At the end of the quarter, pick the one you didn't do as well on, and then I'll let you retake that. The other is I may have set the bar a little bit high, so I'm going to make the future quizzes a little bit easier. So there's that. Definitely don't worry, don't be concerned if you didn't do as well as you'd like. But at the same time, on the other hand, I would say the quiz that you took for today was almost as hard as I wanted it to be, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. I wanted it to be pretty difficult, and not difficult in the sense that there's anything you didn't understand. And I think you'll agree with me that when we left class here, you probably knew the material, felt good about the material. There's nothing really complicated that we go over. But the thing I want you to be able to do is just be so familiar with it that you can answer questions in a timed environment and think about how different moving parts work together. And that's just the kind of studying I want you to do after you have the understanding that you get in this class. Question?
Professor, what do you consider a good score or something that you would expect?
I mean, I guess I would say looking back, I don't know what you got on the quiz because I hadn't checked when you took it, but I would say if you look back at the answers, you would say that, oh yeah, I understand all those. I understand why I got it wrong, and if you got it right, obviously you understand why you get it right. So I think you should understand all of those questions. There's no questions on there where I would consider that was a tough one. I bet people are going to get wrong. The only reason I would say you would get it wrong is because it's just coming at you too fast and you get confused. So I would say understand the material where you can have those kind of fast, question answer. You can answer a question quickly, where you could just engage someone in a discussion about these concepts quickly. You just understand it fluently. So I guess a good score would be all of them right, getting all of them correct.
Oh, well, besides that, would you say anything 15 or above, 18 or above? I'm not sure.
It gave us letter grades at the end.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so you'll see.
You'll see. So it's up to you, I guess, what you would consider
what I'm
good.
saying is, like, some professors might be like, let's say you got a C.
Okay.
But, I know this was difficult, just like you're saying now. This other things that you include, just like the extra cost that we saw to bring up supply, bring down demand and stuff.
Yeah. So
work that we put in.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes. So I guess whatever you consider a good grade would be up to you. But I would answer that question the same way. That I think everyone should have been able to get every single question right on the quiz. And the only reason that you didn't is because it's new, it's not familiar. But that's where I want you to get with this material. Okay. All right. So ready to start with the material for tonight. Price elasticity of demand is our first topic. Who's familiar with price elasticity of demand? Elasticity. Have we heard that term before, or is it completely new? New?
We read it in the book.
Oh, you read it in the book. Okay, fantastic. All right, so a quick review of our basic concept from last time. Economists like to graph price on one axis, quantity demanded on the other axis. As price goes down, consumers demand more or will want more of it because the price is lower. As the price goes up, suppliers will say, I need to supply more at that price. Supply meets demand, and we have a quantity set, and we have a market price and a competitive equilibrium. Suppose we look at a couple different shapes of this demand curve. Suppose it's a little flatter, suppose it's a little steeper. I want to think about what that would mean for overall change in revenue if we, as the business people, were to change price. So we're putting our manager hats on and we're saying potentially how can we make the most money possible? Well, what if we increase price? Is that going to make more money? Are we going to, we're obviously going to get paid a little bit more per unit, but are we going to sell less? So juggling act there. Let's look at this first curve. So price is, say, here initially, all right, and we want to change it to here, all right, so what's going to happen to the change in quantity? Is it going to be a big change in quantity or a little change in quantity? Little. It's going to be a little change in quantity. So we're going to change from here to here is the price change. All right, price change. And from here to here is the quantity change. So we're going to, let's say we're going to increase price. We say we want to make more money, so let's increase price. And when we do that, we are going to decrease the quantity demanded. Like the consumers are going to say, I'm going to demand less at that price. You can see it's a small change in quantity for a large change in price. So as business owners, we would like that, right? We would say, yes. We have what we call an inelastic demand curve, or an inelastic product. So the quantity doesn't, if you think of elasticity, maybe think like one of those jogging pants where you have elastic band and it's really stretchy. So if you like pull the stretchy band, it stretches with you, and it's elastic. That's what we call elastic. But if you don't have a stretchy band, you would pull the jogging pants and then they wouldn't stretch with you. They wouldn't bounce with you. So we would call this type of curve inelastic. Inelastic. And we like that because a large change in price, small change in quantity. And our revenue, in this case, would increase because we would get more for each unit sold, and that would not be offset by a few less units that we actually sell. Does that make sense? Sense? Inelastic? All right, take a look at this demand curve. Suppose we had a product where customers demanded this much based on this price. So suppose in this situation we were selling, I don't know, this much quantity at this price, and we got the bright idea to say, hey, let's increase price. We're going to make more money. So what's going to happen when we increase price? Well, no, we increase price, and the customers are going to, do they want to buy more or less? Yeah, I say, I'll sell you this thing for $15. You're like, okay, how about 30? You're like, no, I don't want it anymore. So we increase price. The customers are going to demand less. But how much less? Just eyeballing that curve.
It would be a large change in quantity of demand.
Yeah. So a very small change in price, all of a sudden, boom. All right, up to from here to here in price, this is small, be a large change in quantity. So quantity, be like, nope, we don't want to buy it just because you changed price this much. Price. All right, so this flatter curve is what we call an elastic demand curve. Elastic. It's like those jogging pants I mentioned, where you pull it and it stretches with you. So, small change in price, the customer's like, no, not buying it. Elastic, inelastic. I like to remember elastic because I think of the E with the 3 lines that are horizontal, and I think of the demand curve for an elastic product being horizontal. And then for inelastic, I think of the demand curve being up and down like the I in inelastic. All right, so let's go back to inelastic for a minute. So, actually, you know what? Let's discuss what might make a product inelastic versus elastic. What factors might weigh into that?
Something you need.
Yes. Okay. So it's a product that everyone desperately needs. It might be an inelastic product. What else? How about substitutes? We talked about that last time, right? How would this weigh into the inelastic, elastic problem? So for this product, do you think there are a lot of substitutes for it? Or a small number of substitutes? Yeah, small number of substitutes for it. So we can jack up the price and people are like, well, I guess we have to buy your product. How about this product though? On the other hand, this product might have a lot of substitutes. So we jack up the price a little bit, they're like, oh, we'll just walk around the corner and buy the thing from someone else. All right. A couple other things that factor into it. One is percentage of your income that this product signifies. If this is a product that's a very small percentage of your income, customers say, well, I don't care. You increase the price by a little bit, whatever. I was thinking about this the other day at the grocery store when I was buying these peeled garlic cloves. And they're cheap. They're like $3 for a big tub of peeled, or not a big tub, but a nice sized package of peeled garlic. And it saves you all the trouble of having to like cut the garlic and open it up, and your hands smell like garlic, and it just takes forever if you want a little garlic in your meal. So I paid $3 for these little packets of garlic, and they saved me so much time. And I was thinking about how I don't even know how much they cost. I don't even really look at it. Like, they could increase the price to, say, $5, and I would still say $5. I don't even really care. It's only $5. Look at all the time it saves me. It's such a small percentage of, such a small percentage of my grocery budget. So, if it's a small percentage, customers don't care so much, and you will see more of an inelastic demand curve. And the other thing is time. Right? How much time do customers have to react to this? Initially, you might see a product that is very elastic. So when you make a little bit of a change, initially you might see a product that is very inelastic. When you make a price change, customers are like, all right, well, we still have to buy it because we're used to buying it. Let me give you an example. Talk abstractly about this. I think airfare, you'll see in your textbook, is an example of this. If there's a change in price in airfare, there's very little change in demand initially, because people are like, all right, well, I was already going to this wedding, I was already going on this business trip, I already had this plan to fly somewhere, so because the airlines change the price a little bit, customers initially are like, whatever, we just got to pay the airlines a little bit more. So the airlines face an inelastic demand curve. But over time, a year or two later, companies start thinking, all right, maybe we shouldn't fly our employees for that retreat all the way to California. Maybe we'll do this thing in New Jersey. Maybe I'll get a better car so I don't have to fly when I go to DC. I'll just drive down to DC because airfare costs so much. So over time, the curve for airfare becomes more elastic. Make sense? All right, so let's fire through these slides and put that in perspective and do a couple of calculations with that. Price elasticity demand, the responsiveness, sensitivity to a change in price. All right, we calculated the ratio, the percentage change in quantity demanded of a product to the percentage change in price. So we will have percentage change in quantity on the top, percentage change in price on the bottom. So, question is, how much change in quantity do we have for a 1 unit change in price? If we have a large change in quantity, we'll call that an elastic product. All right, just a small change in price would cause a significant change in quantity. If it's smaller, then we call it inelastic. Example, suppose the university's enrollment drops by 20% because tuition raises by 10%. What's the price elasticity of demand? So look at the previous slide. What's the formula for price elasticity of demand?
20 over 10.
Alright, so it's 20 over 10. Alright, that's going to be 2. Alright, and we will call anything over 1 an elastic product. And if a product is elastic, the thing about that is that increase in price will cause a significant drop in quantity. And of course, our revenue is determined by our price times our quantity. So an elastic product, our revenue will drop. We'll make less money if we change the price, if we increase the price on an elastic product.
So inelastic is anything that's less than 1?
Elastic is greater than 1.
Oh.
So this is an elastic product because enrollment dropped by more than the percentage change in tuition.
Oh, okay.
Elastic is greater than 1. And there's the calculations that Lonnie did for us. 20 over 10. Now, notice this is negative 20. That's the change in enrollment, and the change in price is positive 10. Some textbooks I've seen will call this coefficient negative 2, and that's fine. Some economists I've seen refer to it that way. We just know that there's an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and price, so if you say 2 or negative 2, either way is fine. So why is it 2, not negative 2? All right, there's a small calculation issue that we need to deal with, and this has to do with the direction of how we calculate to the change in quantity or the change in price. Say, for example, we're going from a quantity of 5 to a quantity of 3. The change, what's the percentage change from 5 to 3? How much?
2.
2? Yeah, all right, well, it's 2 total, but what's the percentage change? 2 over 5, right? Which is 40%. Yes, so 2 over 5, 40% when we're going from 5 to 3. But if we're going from 3 to 5, what's the percentage change? It's a total of 2, but it's 2 divided by the original, which is 3, so it's a change of 66%. So it depends on which way we look at it, and we'll get different numbers. Economists solve this problem with what they call the midpoint formula, and it is a couple slides down. So our elasticity formula, change in quantity over change in price, it's going to be the change in quantity and then divided by the first quantity and the second quantity. Add those two together, and in the denominator it's going to be the change in price divided by the first price plus the second price. So we can solve this problem. Just have to work it out a little bit slowly. Let's see if we have an example to crank this out. Right, everyone has this? It's right. Oh, do you? Sorry. Stephanie, you have slides.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Okay. So you're writing furiously. Okay. All right. Elastic demand, we talked about a percentage change in quantity greater than the percentage change in price. So this formula for an elastic product would be greater than 1. And for an elastic product, we have a price increase and we decrease our revenue. When we increase our price, our customers say, no, I don't want to buy that, to the extent that it hurts our revenue. On the other hand, what if we decrease our price? What happens then?
More buyers.
Yeah, more buyers, not only more buyers, but because it's an elastic product, we get proportionally more buyers than the percentage change in price. So we get, more importantly, Luke,
Oh, right. Yeah.
more revenue. All right, so if it's an elastic product, we can decrease the price and increase revenue. Say that in your next board meeting, your next management meeting. Say, oh, I think we should decrease price and increase revenue. All right, example, tickets sold per price, or tickets for a concert. Let's see, we're going to change the price from 30 to 20, and we're going to see how much that increases demand on the horizontal axis. So, how we use the midpoint formula, we're going to look at quantity, change in quantity divided by change in price. So the change in quantity is a total of 30. So that's in that 4-step formula, this is our top number. Change in quantity is a total of 20. I'm sorry. So 10 to 30 is 20. And then the second step in that formula is 10 plus 30. And then our change in price, there's a change of 10. So the third number down is going to be 10. And then the last number, the bottom number, is going to be 30 plus 20 for 50. Let's see here. They do that? I guess they did it all in this example. So change in quantity is, we did it. So the change in price, so 20 over 40 divided by 10 over 50. So we can calculate this out. The change in quantity is going to be 0.5. Change in price is going to be 0.2. So 0.5 divided by 0.2. The elasticity coefficient is 2.5, which is greater than 1. And what does that mean? Elastic. All right. And this decrease in price is going to make us more money. Yes. All right. Percentage inelastic. On the other hand, the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. So inelastic. In an inelastic product, Lonnie pointed out this might be something really important. We could increase the price, and we'll get a few less buyers, but we won't get as many, and we will ultimately increase our total revenue. So we increase the price. Our buyers are like, we're going to buy a little bit less, but for the most part, we're not going to buy too much less. So we're going to pay the higher price and increase your revenue. If we decrease price, then we'll decrease revenue. And we don't want to do that, right? That's interesting. Right? People might think, well, let's decrease price. We'll get more buyers. And you point out, well, no, it's an inelastic product, so the decreased price, that just decreases the total revenue. Now notice this inelastic is shaped more vertically. It's closer to this straight up and down. I remember the inelastic, the I. So a small change in, a large change in price will only have the effect of a small change in quantity. Any questions on that? Inelastic, elastic? And there's just another calculation. Got it? Now, you have an interesting situation. What if the percentage change in quantity is equal to the percentage change in price? Right in between. You won't see this too much in the real world, but you might hear people talk about it. We call this unitary elasticity. Elasticity coefficient is 1. So change the price, you increase the price, quantity goes down in exact equal proportion, revenue stays the same. Conversely, if you do it the other Price increase, price decrease, no change in total revenue. Revenue for unitary elastic demand. Question?
Yeah, there's an interesting thing, this hearing they had in Congress
Yeah.
about the woman who's in charge of the company that's doing the EpiPen.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you all hear about that? The EpiPen?
she does not want to decrease the
Yeah,
price.
she defended it.
So the EpiPen
What's
was.
Well, the argument is that she says that they don't make that much money anyway. That there's other people in the process who are making money, and their costs are pretty constant, and so as a consequence, they're going to be substantially affected if they have to decrease the price.
Yeah, this is a life-saving drug that you, I guess, stick in whatever, save your life, whatever, for this drug. So the company increased the price from what, $100 to $600 over the last 2 years, something like that. And people are like, well, you have a patent on it, I can't buy it anywhere else. So,
Wait for generic.
Well, they offered a generic, but she defended that too, saying that they could just buy the generic. But the problem is people with EpiPen say that most doctors won't recommend the generic. They want to keep it the EpiPen, so they still have to buy it for $600.
wow.
Yeah.
All right, so is the EpiPen, is that an inelastic or an elastic product?
It's inelastic.
Yes, very inelastic product. So she gets some harassment from the Senate, but you know, this is a free country, free market. She can do what she wants. They just have to take some bad PR. You know, maybe the Senate Finance Committee or whatever committee that's investigating them can figure out some rules they might be breaking. But their argument is no, nothing to do it.
Congress doesn't do much anymore. They can't decide.
Yeah.
So,
And I think there's a concept that a healthcare company would bring up that we would all agree with in theory, is that we want healthcare companies motivated by a large paycheck to create more, better drugs that are going to save lives. So we say to the healthcare industry, you know, if you create this drug that's going to make society better, save millions of lives, we want you to be rewarded for that. We want you to be not only rewarded for that, but we want that to be a good investment decision for you to spend all the money you need to create that drug on the front end. So I'm sure there was shades of that argument that were heard when she was testifying.
so would the result be that they establish like a price ceiling, I guess?
There are so many expensive medications, but they always say get the generic then.
Yeah, they always say the
If there's
generic's
a
bad.
generic, then that's why it's expensive. But because you're supposed to be getting the generic. That's what the insurance companies say.
Or
Usually
the
the-
insurance company say,
You should get the generic.
Yeah.
Because
Insurance
it's
companies want
unavailable.
you to get the generic because that's less that they can cover.
yeah, I guess that's.
If there's one available.
But the
Yeah.
company wants you to pay for the non-generic.
Usually the non-generic expensive medications they're called like high tier medications that the insurance companies don't want to pay for. Or in the beginning when they first come out and they're experimental, there aren't that many generics available.
Yeah,
So
well,
they're
and,
expensive and then doctors don't know if you're there, like they don't
yeah,
always give them out. And then
but also there's like a grace period or whatever you call it, sort of a
they're not
window
allowed to make
where they're allowed to just have that be their exclusive product, where no one else is allowed to make and produce a generic, and it's just for that reason I mentioned. These healthcare companies,
Competitors to make a generic.
I think you have patent protection for a period of time.
like 7 years or something.
I think it's actually longer than
I
that.
think it's I think it's like 15 or something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that,
it's
yeah.
a long.
Because I think
That's the reason
the one
next
that
thing just came
Pfizer
off that
makes is up next year too.
So is that why the generics aren't exactly, maybe they're not working exactly the same way because they're not exactly the same formula?
They have to change it just a little bit so they don't violate the patent.
Well, yeah, exactly. They can't violate the patent. And like Nexium was prescribed until a couple of years ago. Now it's over the counter, and so they lost it, and so now their price has gone down substantially.
And you also have to think that, and that no unfortunate incidents happen. Because I guess when you have, someone that really needs an EpiPen and they can't afford it, and then it happens here.
Oh yeah,
here,
and
all of a
the
sudden
generic
it's-
is like one little thing is different, and then someone dies from
Right. That's when you
We do a
really
lot
have to pay
with
more attention to this.
with other people who I speak with. I work with the medical benefits at work.
Mhm.
It's a strange thing, but psychiatric medications, a lot of times it happens, and the doctor knows that one works, and they don't like to give generics because they can't. It'll change the whole
Mhm.
balance.
Yeah. Yeah, and answer your
That's
question. Look, I don't think they would establish a price ceiling. What? I don't know exactly what else they would do.
hard.
They would ensure they're following proper regulations, and
Well, insurers play a big role here too, because they say we're not going to cover it.
Oh,
We
okay.
don't
Yeah.
on that. So, in fact, they've done that to a lot of hospitals. Basically, they'd say certain procedures we're not going to pay for them, and we're going to have total care of a patient. We're not going to pay for every little thing you bill us for.
So ultimately, it would come down to societal pressure.
societal pressure
Right.
or some little rules
Well,
with
insurance
the
companies are going
insurance.
to make money because they're in this as well for money, and so they, they can kind of control what their expenditures are going to be.
All right. Yeah, good point. All right, so we've got an example of unitary elasticity. Elasticity coefficient is 1, exactly offsetting change in quantity for the change in price. Revenue stays the same. All right, and then I guess I did not mention these two things. Perfect elasticity. So this is elastic. It's not only really steep, it's actually perfect. It's a perfect straight line. We also have perfect inelasticity, which is a perfect line up and down. Let's talk first about perfect inelasticity. I think that's the easiest one to understand. Perfect. All right, what's going on there? What sort of product might that be? So this is a situation where the quantity demanded is consistent no matter what the price is. This might be the EpiPen,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
especially if there were absolutely no generics. You have to have it. It doesn't matter how much it costs. So perfect elasticity. Perfectly inelastic means if you change the price just a tiny bit, you will sell nothing. And you have no motivation to decrease the price because you can charge the price that's typically been established. We'll often see this in perfect competition. An individual firm will face a perfectly elastic demand curve. What that means is the firm has no choice in what the price is. If multiple firms are selling the same product, they're a small firm, and the market price is established. If one firm increases the price, everyone else will just buy the same product from all the other firms. So an individual firm will often face a perfectly elastic demand curve.
Would that be example would be flour?
Yeah. So, especially if you don't care that your flour comes from whatever mill versus a different type of mill. All right. So price.
Perfectly elastic. The price goes up or down, then quantity stays the same no matter what.
Well, so if you think of it as an individual firm, if you charge a tiny bit higher, you will sell nothing. So in a close to perfect, if you increase price just a little bit, you'll have a huge change in quantity. In perfect, in theory, if you increase price a little bit, you have an infinite change.
There's no more line.
Yeah, you'll have an infinite change in quantity. Meaning you'll go from selling as much as you could sell in the flour market to 0 for a 1 penny
The line
increase.
doesn't move. There's just you went off.
Yeah, I guess so. It's I think I understand what you're getting at. That it's just hard to wrap your head around, and I go through that same thing myself. So I just always have to think, all right, let's think just extremely close to perfect, and that's the way I can understand it. small change in price, huge change in quantity. But if it's perfect, small change in price, infinite change in quantity. All right, small change in price, infinite change in quantity demanded. Straight line. All right, perfectly elastic. At 1 penny more, you will sell nothing. And of course, 1 penny less, it doesn't really make sense because the sellers would say, we can sell as much flour as we want at this prevailing price. Perfectly inelastic is the other extreme. We talked about the EpiPens, assuming there were no generics. Price change, doesn't matter how much you charge, zero quantity. Hopefully the Senate committee will investigate for price gouging. But at least in theory, whatever price you charge, zero change in quantity demanded. Straight up and down. Alright. Regardless, yada yada. Alright, so I looked at the printouts on your handouts, and this may not be very clear, but this just summarizes the different situations we've talked about. If the elasticity coefficient is greater than 1, we call it elastic. The elasticity coefficient is less than 1, we call it inelastic. If it equals 1, we call it unitary. And then we have these funny situations of perfectly elastic, perfectly inelastic. And this is in your textbook too. Like I said, I know you can't read necessarily on the slide, but this is figure, it'll say it. You should be able to see at the top of the slide. It's figure 5.8 or something. Okay, so let's go back to our revenue example. If we change, just to sum this up, if we change revenue, what happens? I can't read the top of this. If we change revenue. All right, if a college raises tuition, what happens to total revenue? Well, if demand is elastic, then total revenue decreases. If demand is unitary, total revenue is constant. If demand is inelastic, then total revenue would increase. Our students would not be as bothered by a tuition change in an inelastic situation. And we talked about this idea of the elasticity coefficient being greater than 1 means elastic. And it means the price increase as gained is less than the revenue demand, less than the revenue lost. So our revenue will decrease. Right? Inelastic. This is price elastic. If the O coefficient is greater than 1, if it is equal to 1, we call it unitary. And if it is less than 1, we call this inelastic. Any questions on that? All right, one little point that I don't want to go into because it's just a mathematical nuance. I'll tell you about it. So if you read it in the textbook, it essentially says that a certain demand curve can be elastic at points, inelastic at points, and have unitary elasticity at other points. And it has to do with the math. Like the price change at this point in the curve, the quantity change is a small percentage, but there's a huge percentage, and the price change is a large percentage. Just because we're dealing with smaller numbers down here, bigger numbers down up here. That's all I want to say about it. Besides the conclusion that the same demand curve can have different points of elasticity and non-elasticity. They just need to be aware that elasticity and elasticity applies to certain points along the demand curve. Does that make sense?
Can you give us an example?
Okay, so let's work. You want to work that example out? So at this point, this is elastic because we have because if we look at the change in quantity, it's like 100% change in quantity from 5 to 10, but the change in price is from 35 to 30. It's like this 5 out of 5 divided by roughly, I know we do the midpoint formula and add them together. 5 divided by 30 is like 1/6. It's like 12%. So you've got a 12% change in price, 100% change in quantity. So this is an elastic product at that point on the demand curve. But then look at the bottom. Here we're going from 30 to 35. Now it's the exact opposite situation. The quantity demanded is a small percentage change. 5 divided by 30 or 35, depending on how you look at it, is like 12% again. And then the price, though, is 100% change. And it's all on the same straight line. It just has to do with the way the math works when the price is high versus the price is low and the quantity is low and the quantity is high. It could be any product. It's just something I wanted you to be aware of, to not be frightened by when you read that in your textbook. Because this doesn't quite conform to a straight up and down line is inelastic or a horizontal line is elastic.
So would oil be an example, for instance, in that situation?
Yeah, any product could be an example of this situation, because if the price, if the quantity is low, then you're going to have a large percentage increase, and the price is high, you're going to have a small percentage change. It just has to do with the math at this particular point.
I see.
Any product that has that shape line, demand curve.
It could be any product. You just have to keep in mind that elasticity only applies to a certain section of the demand curve. So we can't say that this product is elastic or inelastic at every single point. We have to consider the actual price change and the actual quantity change at each given situation. Make sense? Okay, I'm glad we clarified that. I just wanted to skip over that.
Don't put it on the quiz.
No, it will not be on the quiz. All right, so elasticity, unitary elasticity at different points for the same demand curve is a possibility. All right, this one, what have we got here? Just make a note of figure exhibit 5.5. I don't know if you can read that. This summarizes changes in price and changes in revenue, whether or not the product is inelastic or elastic. And this is one of those things that I'm sure you understand, and it's easy to comprehend, but once you start thinking about it, you'll confuse yourself. So as you're drifting off to sleep tonight, just run through. All right, if the price is inelastic, elastic, increase in price, decrease in price, what happens to revenue? All right, factors that go into this. We mentioned a couple. We mentioned availability of substitutes. We mentioned percentage of budget, and we mentioned time. So, availability of substitutes, share of percentage budget, adjustment to price over time. We talked about the idea of if there are a lot of substitutes and you increase the price, consumers are going to say, no, we're just going to get a substitute. Not a lot of substitutes, like say the EpiPen, then the customers are going to say, well, we don't have substitutes, so we have to pay the $600 price. Oh, this is a good question. So, a few slides down. Which demand curve is for a vital medicine and which is for candy? Look at these two demand curves. We've got price, quantity, price, quantity. We've got a very straight up and downish, and we've got a flatter demand curve. Which one is for the life-saving medicine?
It's just like EpiPen. Medicine's on the left.
Medicine's here. Inelastic product. Candy's on this side. Lots of substitutes for the candy. Not so much for the life-saving medicine. All right. Percentage of one's budget. I gave my peeled garlic example. If that's just a couple dollars, they could raise the price by, say, 50%. They could raise it to $3 and I wouldn't even notice. But airfare, if they raised airfare by 50%, I'd be like, whoa. I used to be able to fly to California for $400. Now I pay $600. That's a lot. Time sensitivity. The longer consumers have to adjust, the more sensitive they are to a change in price and the more elastic the demand curve is. So products' elasticity coefficient becomes bigger over time as customers adjust. There are a couple interesting examples in the chart. I already pointed out airfare, air travel. So air travel, the elasticity coefficient is initially 0.1. So customers so for every 1% increase in price, quantity demand goes down by 1/10 of 1%. So you could increase price by 10% and you would only lose 1% of the quantity. And then look what it amounts to over time in the long run. The elasticity coefficient goes all the way up to 2.4. So that means that 1% change that 10% increase in price resulted in a 24% decrease in quantity. Assuming customers have time to adjust, change their travel plans, use Skype more, whatever they need to do. Any other interesting ones there? Talk about movies. What's going on? I thought about that. I thought it was kind of funny. Movies. Let's look at that last one. What's going on there? Or look at that as our last example. The short-run elasticity coefficient for movies is 0.87. The long-run elasticity is 3.67. Why is that? So break it down. What's happening initially? What's this 0.87?
Everyone's excited to go see the movie.
All right, so it's on the inelastic side, so they could increase the price, and people are like, "Oh, that sucks," but I'm still going because they're excited. And then what happens over the long run?
Going on
It's worth
Netflix.
that much money. You hear your friends.
Well, why don't they go on Netflix the first? I thought of that too. Why didn't they go on Netflix the first
It's not
time?
available.
They don't have the first runs.
Bugs,
The first run films on Netflix.
Yeah,
wariness to
but aren't we looking at it though just movie tickets? So movies tickets go up $10, and I have a date for Friday night. I take that date to the movies. All right, and even though they went up $10, I still go to the movies.
Maybe they
But a
keep
month-
spending so much money at the movies, and they realize that that was a lot of money, and now they really need to stay home because
They had time to think about it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, they had time to think about it. So I don't think that the next run applies in this situation.
But in
It's
terms
like,
of the movie theater, wouldn't it be in terms of time? Because you would be more apt to go to the movies the first week, and then it would become, say, elastic over time because
If
it's
it's
already
if
a
it-
month out.
if it's the same movie,
Yeah, you wouldn't go and see the movie.
Is
now,
that-
right?
I honestly I don't think that's what they're getting at here. I think what they're getting at is I'm the kind of person who goes to the movies. I want to see any movie. I want to see it in the movie theater. Price goes up. I still go to see the movies. 2-3 months later, a different new movie comes out, and I say no. I'm not going to go to the movies. So I don't think it's a comparison between a movie coming out and then a month later it's on Netflix. I think I change my behavior the same way I would change my behavior with air travel. I would initially be like, all right, I still have to go fly somewhere, but next year I'm going to plan better so I don't have to fly.
But it's still worth with the one same movie. They can't keep charging a lot. They can't charge more for it. No one will go see it. Or it's old. It's different.
I don't know. What do you all think? Is that possibly am I looking at that wrong? Huh.
No, I just don't know if it'll work that
Okay. Theater and opera. How about this one? Let's do theater and opera tickets. So, theater and opera tickets, it's very inelastic initially. So we increase the price, and people are still like, I'm going to the opera, going to the theater. And then it increases a little bit. It becomes a few less people, a few people saying, no, I'm not, a few more people say I'm not going to go. But not that much. It still remains a very inelastic product.
Not that many substitutes.
Yeah, I'm going out to the opera tonight. And it just has a certain ring to it. That I'm going to the movie theater. How does this work in with the movie theater?
Well, you get a dedicated group to go to opera. I mean, people that go. And for movies, I think you have maybe a larger draw. You do that.
There are more substitutes.
I would think it's more the substitutes because, say you go to the opera, you're either watching, say, one or two shows that are going on at that particular time, whereas the movies, you could pick a different movie.
And then if the
Different movie. Okay,
if the
yes.
You
the
know, they
price
got
of
like
big
15
screen
screens.
TVs went down,
Now we're
then you
talking.
could be home.
Now we're talking. Yeah. All right. Good points. Okay. That's elasticity. And now we're going to talk about some production functions, some cost curves in the next section. In order to understand these cost curves, we need to get a couple of concepts down. First is our basic economic assumption. When we're looking at these cost curves and analyzing what we think the business is going to do or why they're doing it, we assume the motivation for business decisions is profit maximization. And that's typically, at least some truth to that. Maybe a company might have various desires to make the community better, but companies are in business to make profit, and that's going to help us understand the motivation for these cost curves. We need to distinguish accounting profit versus economic profit. Has anyone heard of that term before? Or anyone heard of economic profit being different than accounting profit?
In the text, I think the economic profit was like the inclusion of, you included the costs that don't change. I'm sure you can get into that explicit.
Yes. Okay, so accounting profit is just explicit costs. And that's what you probably thought of as profit before now. It's just, all right, how much did you pay? How much did you pay for rent? How much did you pay for salary? How much did you pay for shipping and transportation? But that doesn't include something or certain things that economists like to include. It doesn't include things that you don't actually pay for, such as your own time. So you invest many hours in this new business. You could be earning a salary for someone else. And we'll call that next best opportunity your opportunity cost. And we'll call that an implicit cost. So in order to truly factor, truly understand whether or not you're in the right business, you need to think about those things. Like when I started my consulting company, I didn't really think about that. I was spending a lot of hours, and I just thought about how much money I was actually spending on the website and whatnot. I didn't really think about that in those terms.
Is that the intrinsic value?
Implicit costs. Yeah, it's costs that you don't actually pay for. Other examples could be if you're working out of your house, like your business is your home office, well, what else could you be doing with your house? You could be renting it to someone else, you could be renting that room to someone else. So that's foregone rent. So to be precise about it, you need to include that implicit cost. So accounting profit is different than economic profit. So we understand explicit cost is actual payments you make. Implicit cost, opportunity cost is of using resources owned by the firm, i.e. your labor, i.e. your spare bedroom. Are you going to use that as the office space, or are you going to rent that out to someone? Implicit costs, such as that. Total opportunity costs. What economists call total opportunity costs are the implicit costs that you actually pay or the explicit costs you actually pay and the implicit costs that you don't actually pay for. But you would have an opportunity to make money somewhere else. So in deciding whether or not you're in the right business, you want to account for that. Accounting profit is just revenue minus explicit costs. What accountants think of as profit, what we probably all thought of as profit before we studied economy or economics. And economic profit is the revenue minus explicit and minus implicit, or total revenue minus the total opportunity costs. All right. That brings us to a concept we call normal profit. What economists will call normal profit is when the economic profit is zero. And you may think that's a bad thing, economic profit being zero, but what that means is that you are allocating your resources efficiently, that you are making as much money as you could make anywhere else. So you may be making a zero, quote unquote, zero economic profit, but that means you're covering the cost of your time, you're covering the cost that you could be making if you rented out your room, and so you're earning what economists call a normal profit. You're allocating resources effectively and there's no better opportunity. This is the minimum profit necessary to keep the firm in operation. Firm that earns a normal profit earns total revenue that is equal to total opportunity costs. So the revenue we're earning is equal to all the explicit bills we have to pay plus all the foregone opportunities we're missing out on. Examples. Suppose you're getting revenue of $500,000. You have explicit costs, wages, materials, interests. Accounting profit, you might be earning a profit of $30,000. But that doesn't include things that we would look at if we look at economic profit. We look at all those explicit costs, but forget about the salary you could have made somewhere else. The rent you could have made if you're renting out your house. Say you're using your own money, you're investing your own money. Well, you could be investing that with someone else and earning an interest rate. So that's foregone. And the same scenario, you're at a $35,000 loss if you include that in your calculation. All right. Economists look at economic profit as the way to make business decisions. And so when we talk about profit, we'll usually mean economic profit. Total opportunity cost. Explicit and implicit. All right. This gives us some of the tools we need to know to understand some of these cost curves. And start talking about the language necessary to understand our production function. I'm going to throw a few more terms at you, which I'm sure will not shock you. I'm sure you'll heard them before, but just thinking about how we can use them in our calculations. First, fixed input. These are things that do not change in the short term, such as a factory, such as an assembly line. We'll call that a fixed input that we can't change in the short term, and we have to pay for it if we're in business at all. We have something else we'll call a variable input, any resource for which the quantity can change during the period of time in consideration. Variable inputs might be extra overtime. You might pay your workers if you have them work on additional projects. If you don't have your workers working, maybe you could have a situation where you have a freelance on contract basis, and if you produce 0 units, you still have to pay the rent on your building, you still have to buy that assembly line, but maybe you don't have to pay your workers anything. You've got some sort of online resources, something like that. Variable can be changed during the time period under consideration. All right, and then we'll look at short run versus long run. Short run is so short that there is at least one fixed input. So in the short run, we cannot change those fixed inputs. But in the long run, economists will say all inputs can be changed. All inputs can be considered variable. In the long run, so we've got short run, long run, we've got fixed, we've got variable, we've got explicit, implicit, accounting profit, normal profit, economic profit. All right, that's going to bring us to our first production function, which is going to be a relationship between maximum amounts of output a firm can produce and various quantities of inputs. The gold standard for this production function is total product produced versus labor input. I think that's what it says, yes. All right, so we've got, no, we can't see that, but let's look at this for our first production function. So we've got the amount of product that we're producing, and we've got units of labor. These might be hours that we work. These might be employees that we hire. I think it's easiest to look at these as employees. So at 0 employees, obviously we're producing nothing, but then we hire 1 employee, and we've got, say, 10, 11 units of output. All right, so fine. We hire 1 employee, we get 10, 11 units of output. And then we hire the second employee, and we go from 11 to 20, which is about the same. So the second employee is just as productive as the first one. Then we go to 3 employees, and look at that jump. What happened there? We went from 20 to like 30, 33 units. So what happened with that third worker? So we got
He's younger and faster.
yeah. Oh, okay, okay. All right, younger and faster. But we'll just say we have some sort of synergy. We have some sort of way of maybe there's maintenance to do around the shop. All right, and everyone, if they work in teams of 3, that's the more efficient way to do it. And so adding that third worker gives us a significant increase in product. But then what happens with this fourth worker? We go from, say, it looks like 34 to 42. What happens with, what's going on with the first worker? Or the fourth worker? It's the opposite situation that happened with the third worker. Instead of this third worker being like the perfect piece of the work team, this fourth worker kind of added a little bit of drag. Maybe space was limited. Maybe there's communication. Now we have to spend, time going back and forth with HR. And this continues. This diminishing returns continues. And this could actually go negative. It doesn't go in this example, but this 7th and 8th worker could actually decrease the amount of total product that we're putting out because space constraints, whatever. So this brings us to an important concept, or marginal product. Change in total output produced by adding 1 more unit of variable input. So how much output did we add for each one of our units of input? And it's going to be important to us where we're getting the best returns and where we're getting diminishing returns. Because we can look back to this first graph and we can see that I think going from the second to the third worker, we get, and I know this graph doesn't come out exactly like this. This is a little bit different than the one they're using that I copied from the book. But if you just stick to the way we designed this example, the third worker gave us 13 units of more of production. So we had a more return than we got from the first 2. But then the third to the fourth, we only got like 8 extra. We got what we'll call a diminishing return for that fourth worker. And we got an especially diminishing return for the 5th worker, and then 6th worker, and we may even be getting into negative returns. So diminishing returns simply means as we add more workers, we get less marginal product out of each of those workers. Make sense? All right, we could do the math if we wanted to. principally beyond some point, the marginal product decreases as additional units, resources are added to a fixed factor. This principle assumes fixed inputs because we could, in the long run, we could make a bigger factory. We could figure out a way to use all of those workers. We could, if we have some advantages of economies of scale. All right, cost curves. Let's do this. Let's take a brief break. Are you ready for a break? All right, let's take 10 minutes. We'll come back at whatever 10 minutes is. Let's come back at 7:47, please. See you in 10 minutes.
It's economics, not ergonomics.
Actually, my last two classes I took standing up. That's why I usually go in the back.
Oh, that probably feels
At work, I do a standard workstation, so I alternate.
my boss has that.
Yeah.
You can push a button.
It helps. Yeah, you just lift it from the side, from work, standing up.
I stand around a lot of work, so I don't know what's in there.
Good, good. How'd you end out with that class?
Got it.
Yeah. So did I.
But now I'm thinking about intrinsic value, not economic.
Yeah, it's similar
Same
concepts.
thing, right?
Yeah.
I try to say economic,
Key part of it.
but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Same idea.